In this video, we're going to be looking at implicit equations again. This time focusing on the tangent line. Is it vertical or is it horizontal? So remember, if your slope is 0 over some number, let's just say b, and that would be a horizontal line, right? Now, what if your slope instead was some number over 0? That would end up being an undefined or vertical slope. So this is really important for this lesson because you're going to end up with a rational derivative. And if the numerator is 0, then you have a horizontal line. If the denominator is 0, now you have a vertical line. Then if it's 0 over 0, it's kind of indeterminate, and we'll have to take another look. So for this one, find the point on the curve where the line tangent to the curve is vertical. So if we want that vertical tangent, we want the denominator to equal 0. So we want 3y squared minus x, we want that to equal 0. Okay, that doesn't quite help us out yet. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and solve. It looks easy to solve for x. And the reason, don't forget, we need this. We need the denominator to equal 0 because it's a vertical line, right? Should have established that, make sure that's obvious. So negative x equals negative 3y squared. And it's nice that they actually start you with the derivative. Sometimes they don't start you with the derivative when they're being evil. Usually you'll see these on free response for the AP test, though, and they'll have you take the derivative as part of it, and this will be like one of the last questions on there. And so out of 9 points, this would be like a few of those points, and a few of the points would have been finding the derivative. So it is important now to do this. So x equals y, 3y squared. So I'm going to plug that into the x there. So y cubed minus x times y equals 2 is our function. So y cubed times 3y squared times y equals 2. So y cubed minus 3y cubed equals 2. So let me give some more space here. And so what we'll have is negative 2y cubed equals 2. Y cubed equals negative 1. So y equals negative 1 if you cube root the negative 1, right? Negative 1 cubed is negative 1. Different ways you can think about that. So y is negative 1. Now how do we find our x value? We're going to plug it back in to our function there. So negative 1 cubed minus x times negative 1 equals 2. And I'm actually kind of wondering if we could have just plugged it back in right there, right? So that's going to be negative 1 plus x equals 2. So x equals 3. And I think, yeah, that would have worked out if you plug the negative 1 in there. X equals 3. And just to double check this, let's go ahead and graph this function. Let me turn that one off. We need that one later. And so 3, negative 1 would be right here. And you can see that would be a vertical tangent, wouldn't it? Through that curve there would be a vertical tangent. So good job. We got that one done. Okay, so now let's look at the horizontal tangent. So for a horizontal tangent, that means that the top equals 0. So it's going to be the exact same idea. Negative 3x squared minus y set it equal to 0. It looks easy to solve for y, so let's solve for y and substitute that in. Substitute it in up here for the y value. This is almost exactly the same problem. Now, why am I figuring out if the slope is, if I'm looking at the derivative, why does it matter if the numerator and denominator, the derivative is 0? It's because, remember, that's the slope. If slope has if slope has a 0 in the denominator, it's undefined, being a vertical tangent. And if the slope has a 0 in the numerator, then it's going to be a horizontal tangent. So x this time equals 1. substitute it back in to find your y value. You can go ahead and finish that one out. And like I said, I think you can substitute in here and find out that y is negative 3. Let's go ahead and just test that real quick. And 1, negative 3, there it is, a horizontal tangent. So got that one right. Okay, now we're going to find a y-coordinate of the point where the line tangent to the curve is the y-axis. So I want to point out the y-axis is the equation x equals 0. So we must pick a point in which x equals 0. We also, if you think of x equals 0, that's going to be, the y-axis is a vertical line. So that means we should have a 0 in the denominator. So if we look at the denominator, y minus 4, that needs to equal 0. So if we set y minus 4 equal to 0, then y equals 4. And actually, we're kind of stuck. Y has to equal 4. We really don't have any other choice. And x would be 0. So 0, 4 is going to be the place where it's going to have to be there where we have that vertical tangent. And if we could plug a 0 on the top, gives us 3 on top, 0 on the bottom. So it works out fine for our slope. We maybe should double check, is that a point in here? If we plug in a 4 for the y and a 0 for the x, does that work right there? So let's go ahead and do that. So 3 times 0 for the x plus 6 times 0 minus 4 squared plus 8 times 4. Does this give us 16? So this is negative 16 plus 32. And yes, it does give us 16. So it is part of that point. So basically, is the point 0, 4, is this on the graph? That's something you should wonder. So once we figured that out, is 0, 4, is this on the graph? And so this is the first one that we did. 0, 4, you'll see it is on the graph, and it is the y-axis that's tangent to it.